Hi, and welcome to Serenity in Leadership's series on leading responsibly with integrity and purpose. A series dedicated to conversations with people who are shining examples of this kind of leadership. I'm Thom Dennis, CEO of Serenity in Leadership. We're premier leadership development and culture integration and change specialists. We help businesses overcome challenges and achieve successful, lasting outcomes whilst always putting their people at the heart of the business. Today, I'm delighted to welcome back Dean Carter, who is now Chief People and Purpose Officer at Guild, where he oversees the strategic direction and execution of all aspects of human resources, diversity and inclusion, and social responsibility for what is a fast-growing company that is transforming the future of learning and work. Before that, Dean was the head of global people and culture and shared services at Patagonia, where he led a team of over 200 professionals across HR, finance, legal, real estate, and family services. Dean has over 15 years of experience in leading global people and culture functions and is passionate about creating and sustaining purpose-driven organizations that empower their employees to grow, thrive, and make a positive impact. He has been recognized with multiple awards for innovation and is a pioneer in pushing the edge of HR conversations. Welcome, Dean. It really is wonderful to have you back.
Well, Tom, thank you very much. It's always weird to hear your the things you've done and all that add up. So really, it's humbling to hear that back. And I forget when I write my bio, and then I put kind of things in there. And yeah, it's been a glorious adventure.
Fantastic. So to start off, can you say a word about Guild? When you left Patagonia, you had the dream of finding another company as purpose-centric. And I think as you set out, you were doubtful about finding such an organization.
That was very true. And I wasn't even sure if I was going to do another head of HR after, what do you do? What's your encore after Patagonia? A great company, amazing founders, ended up, by the time I left, the #1 brand in America. And that was a pretty incredible experience. So what do you do after that? And I really didn't have a plan. And I accepted a keynote not long after I left Patagonia that was going to happen in the fall. And then I did the keynote, and apparently that went really well because that was the Guild's Opportunity Summit where they brought all their clients together, and that was the opening thing. And so the founder, Rachel Romer, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, glad you're here. Do you know anyone who might be interested in head of HR?" And so that landed in a few shots of tequila later, and I said yes, and I said yes for this. I guess I love a big challenge, and of course, saving the planet is a big challenge, and fundamentally we have a labor crisis, and there is not going to be enough labor, and also we have a bunch of people who are reasonably unskilled workers in frontline work that are really frustrated because they feel like they don't have opportunity. What Guild does is solve both of those problems. It comes to large employers of hourly workforce, that have large hourly workforce, like Disney, Walmart, Chipotle. Those are the first customers actually Guild had. And they say, okay, what are your hard-to-fill positions? We will upskill and reskill your hourly workforce to get to those hard-to-fill positions as quickly as possible. We'll give them a life coach. We'll give them a career coach. And they make 2-3 times more money, or they have the opportunity to do that, and the company fills their hard-to-fill roles with internal talent. We're going to have to use these kind of solutions in the future because they're going to be like an 85 million skilled worker shortage by 2030. And if we don't start really focusing and getting really, really good at reskilling, upskilling the people that we have, we're all going to be fishing in the same small pond of limited talent. And we're all going to have to learn how to grow our own.
Yeah,
that's what Guild does.
So there's obviously a lot of talk about work culture these days. What would you say are the top determining factors of a healthy work culture?
A healthy work culture. I think there's a lot of there's some goodness going on and some very unhealthy work cultures going on for sure in the news. But what I think about a healthy culture is one that One has a really strong focus on the human experience. So whatever that experience is, what is that? One is it engages employees in the fully in terms of kind of what do you need, what do you want, and how do we get there. And the other part is a company that rewards productivity and performance. So I think those three things that come together for a healthy culture are important. Recognize human beings, listen to them in terms of their input in the company and kind of their own experience, and also really reward those that are performing with the right rewards for them. That's fundamentally it. There's a lot of pieces and parts on that. How you communicate, how you make decisions, how you set up systems and processes. There's a lot of things that are baked in there, but fundamentally, I think that's it.
You're a clear thinker. It sounds quite easy.
Yeah, well, I do say when CEOs or leaders talk about, oh, we need culture change, and I always go, are you sure? Because I'm going to hold up a mirror. Culture is a reflection of you. And so whatever you think you see, I want you to look in the mirror, and that's probably the reflection of your behavior. And it's going to be that. So culture reflects mostly senior leadership because people look up and they, no matter what you say or no matter what you put in writing or no matter what you do in town halls, they're going to watch you, and that's how they're going to behave.
Yeah. Well, I can certainly echo that one. So you recently quoted a study that suggests that the ROI on caregiving and on-site childcare programs in organizations can be as high as 632.5%. Now, that's a remarkable figure.
Even I was surprised by that. I did research on that just to make sure that was real, and it was. I did not sponsor that study. It was done independently, and this, of course, that ROI is looking at a lot of factors. It looks at the cost of turnover, the cost of women not having women in leadership, the cost of diversity program, get women in leadership, the cost of refilling new positions, cost of upskilling, all those things kind of baked in. But yeah, that was a shocking thing. In some ways, the number was a little bit surprising, but not the return on investment. To some extent, was it like, let's say you took it by a sixth and you got 100% instead of 600% return. And it's still an amazing return. I do have some perspective about that, though. There is this question about what is the ROI on childcare or caregiving or whatever, and I think we need to think about these concepts and broader concepts of caregiving, because people certainly have children, but more and more people are caring for aging adults, or they have a spouse that they need caregiving. It's the same challenges that they're facing as taking care of children. Even to some extent, they're even more challenging. Because there's nothing more challenging than like taking care of a parent that now you're the parent and you're caring for them, and that it's heartbreaking to go through those things. So, a baby's very exciting. Having a parent that is in decline is really hard, and in every way. So anyhow, my view is we need to think about care not just for child care, but there's always this question like, what's the ROI? And I always get really frustrated with that, because why do we choose some things to ask ROI for and other things not? I always like to go so what's the ROI for your parking lot? Why are there things that's so important that this needs an ROI for caregiving, but a parking lot doesn't? Or what? So we choose these things, and it's so incredibly obvious. And then when you're in the seat and you're taking care of your parent, you're like, dang, I wish we had that benefit. And so I like to take pictures of executives exploring the benefit. For example, the traveling companion benefit that I always put in every company, which is if a woman is breastfeeding, she has opportunity, the company pays for the baby and a companion to go with her. And so I always know when that's solid when I see an executive holding their baby on the airplane with their companion. I'm like, we're winning.
Wow. Why do you think more companies aren't taking? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. Why?
It does seem like a no-brainer.
Why are more companies not taking up things like this?
Well, I think I'll tell you, maybe where I was when I was at Fossil. We talked about putting on-site childcare, doing more for childcare. It's like, yeah, well, we're just a growing company, and we need to make a profit, and we need to return. We have our shareholders' best interest in this, and so I was actually the person who kept us from getting childcare and expanding our childcare services at Fossil, and I regret that. Once you understand the impact on humans and how grateful they are, and the impact on their lives. And it's hard to do good work if some of the foundations like caregiving aren't taken care of. And what I realize is people work better when they have things caregiving at home, or they have assistance with caregiving. They're much better employees. They're much more loyal. They're 2 times more likely to stay. They're 2 times more likely to refer the company. Everything changes, and I just don't know if people see the long game in it, and they just see the short game of like how much this is going to cost us.
Long game and short game. So you've also been speaking about the adoption of AI in a world of HR technology that has evolved over many years. Is it time to let AI guide a revolution in systems?
Oh God, I'm no way letting go of the steering wheel of AI, and near the people who did this, they are like, some of the top people who have been moving AI forward said stop. And they said, give a pause on this, because it's getting to the point where I don't know that we can control it, because we don't know what we can or can't control on this. So actually, even one of the co-founders of Apple was one of the people who said, we have to stop. This thing could get out of control. And I think they think that ultimately AI will figure out that we're the problem with the planet and will actually kind of get rid of us because we are the actual one. But my view about AI is a lot like the iPhone. This is what I told the team. If there was a lot of like, oh my God, people are gonna, use screen time all this time is gonna destroy children's lives, and there's like a lot of stuff in terms of challenges with the iPhone. I think we're gonna find challenges with AI in the same way we're gonna find an opportunity. And so what I told the team, and when I tell people, just go play with it. Don't start with work. Start with play. Start with home. Write a grocery list. Do your vacation. Ask it daily questions about your tasks. Use it in the same way you used your phone first, just to make a phone call. Then you'll figure out use cases for work that start to make sense. Once you get comfortable with that and you can build some trust in the organization around, oh yeah, I can use this for job descriptions. Oh, I use this to write communication. It's a beautiful place to get started. Like a lot of people can't do white space writing. You can go, okay, could you write me a 3-page essay on this? And then you get to edit it, and then you can kind of go through it. It's just if you consider AI just a helpful assistant at the moment, if in terms of personal use, that's one thing. There's a whole, opportunity, I think, there's not a single company right now that's not saying, hey, I've got an AI coach, or I've got an AI bot, or I've got an AI assist. Everyone's got AI inside now, and it's ubiquitous. And I think we'll have some consolidation of that. And I think that the question that people are going to ask when it comes to AI is like, build, buy, or bot. Like, you're going to build it, you're going to buy it, or or you're going to bot this. And I think that's kind of the question at the moment. I think it's so new. It is so new. The main thing is I recommend you just test an experiment and create some models. What I don't think people should do is nothing. I don't think this is a moment to like sit out and wait and see what's going on, sit on your hands and wait for other people to figure this out. Get in. And I think, Thom, what I really think is of all the moments of technology change, this is the one where HR needs to step in a big way. We need to lead because there's a lot of things you can do with AI. It could be a disastrous for the workforce, or it could be a huge opportunity for the workforce. And I think you have to have a level of wisdom and humanity in this particular moment, or we end up in a really bad situation. For example, the people that are using, all the surveys say, the people that are using and adopting AI right now are young, white, educated men. Those are the ones who are all over it. They're like, you don't even have to tell them. They're just like raw meat. They're just and but women and people of color are not. They're like, yeah, that sounds cool, sounds interesting, but they're not using it, and for a variety of reasons. And so my recommendation is, this, the gap that can exist between the gender gap and the gap between people of color, and White employees, how do we not make that larger in this moment? We have to intervene. You leverage your ERGs, you leverage your folks to, and I talked to someone who's an expert in AI and particularly in women in AI, and she said women need to be handheld in this. You need to show them how this is used, and you can do that through your ERGs. When you do intervention, they get into it as quick as possible, but I just think that if we don't are involved in specifically looking at how this is launched and how it's impacting our employees, it could be a runaway challenge. And I don't think IT is going to solve for that. I don't think finance is going to solve for that. I don't think a head of AI, a VP of AI is going to solve for that. I think it is the unique role in this moment for the head of HR.
That's really interesting, because I haven't met that many people in HR who are really embracing this.
I embraced this 18 months ago. I heard it was coming, and I told the team, I said, get in there. Like, we have to be in front of this. And so I said, I want you to play with it, and I want you to find some use cases. You come back. I want you to form a few groups talking about it. So, and we did a survey of Guild 6 months ago, like who's using AI for what. And the number one user of AI is the people team. Number one, by far, more than the tech team, more than IT. And so that gives us credibility to lean in on this, because we're actually experimenting more than the technology team or the IT team or the legal team or whoever. But we were like 20 points higher on using it every week than any other group.
I can really see the positives in this, in that there are so many human aspects to it.
Yeah.
Like, that people talk about how much AI has been written by white men in a sort of white man thinking paradigm. And it's like, where are all the biases and so on? Nobody's going to pick that stuff up apart from HR.
No. Unless HR. You have to have some involvement. There's a great article in HR Magazine. The cover of it has Johnny Taylor, who's the CEO of SHRM. I don't know if you've seen it, but it says AI plus HI equals ROI. And that's kind of, I think that's a really great concept in what I believe. AI, artificial intelligence plus human intelligence is actually the ROI. Just HI or just AI, putting those two things together in wise and brilliant ways, actually, I think there's some really cool things we can do. By the way, if we're going to go there, the picture of Johnny isn't using AI. He's using VR. So there's like a virtual screen that he looks like he's touching. Yeah. We have just touched the ground with AI, and the thing that terrifies me is VR. Yeah. If anyone's using the Vision Pro, have you checked out the Vision Pro?
Well, it's Apple? Limited to the US at the moment. So I've watched some videos of it, but it's not actually available here. Yeah.
I put it on, and I talk about technology like scary to cool, scary to cool, AI kind of scary to cool, VR scary to cool. Like, it was, the cool factor was like, oh my God, that was amazing. And then the holy smoke, we could just all be like blurbs with this thing attached to our face and not ever moving again and not ever even eating. We could just like tie tubes to us and feed us and then just imagine work. And then it just seems so, all those scary movies coming true because it's so real, Tom. And I've never seen anything. The one called Dimensions feels as if like we're in the room. There's no difference between reality and what you're in. It's really terrifying.
Yeah.
And they gave several work experiences, but you have it up and you look at it and your eye is the pointer, and your finger is like the clicker, and so you just look around. You look at something. You click your finger. And you go, oh, okay, cool. You open it, zoom it up, make it bigger, move it over here, open up the next screen, look at this, open that, click, move it. And so you're basically doing this. That's work. That's opening email.
It's It's a completely new world, that one. It's a completely
We
new
have to,
world.
again, we have to be in front of technology to understand how to use these effectively, and what kind of guardrails we put around some of them in healthy ways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen a number of the videos, the Apple videos of it, and they present it well. But you think,
I used Oculus 15 years ago. I put on Oculus. I'm like, this is silly. This is like a boy's toy.
yeah,
This is not.
yeah,
This is Gen 1. This is Gen 1.
I remember when I was in the military, so we're going back quite a long time, and I was at Shrivenham, which was the sort of the science headquarters of the army, and they had a mainframe there where you could go on and play a game, and just going on it, you could see the mainframe slowing down because it was taking up so much computing power to do these things. But I remember saying to myself, I can get addicted to this.
Yeah.
I can really see myself being addicted because I loved the whole sort of the adventures of going into different dimensions and everything else. And I tell you, I've resisted it ever since because I know if I just fall into that, I'll never come out again.
That's what I was concerned about. That's what I saw this. I was like, someone could have an addiction and think like a loved one had passed away or something, and they could just play videos as if they're in the room over and over. That was the part that I was like, oh, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
I took it off. I was like, especially when the rhinoceros tried to attack me and it was in a shark tank. Those two things.
There's a new program on Netflix at the moment which is called Three Bodies. I think yes, Three Bodies. I think it's called.
Oh, I saw that. I don't. What's that about?
Well, there's a really advanced one of these things that we're talking about in it.
Oh,
which is,
okay.
and yeah, and you can see their reaction when they go into it. And it's like, whoa, this is. Yeah.
Okay.
Scary.
I'll have to watch that. Oh no, this will be this is my nightmare. My provision nightmare.
So let's look at another aspect. Employees are expecting so much more flexibility today compared to before the pandemic. What do you believe is the most successful approach to get the best from everyone to create what I believe is a key aspect of a healthy culture, which is belonging?
Yeah. I have so many of my peers who are so frustrated with their CEOs who are demanding people to come back to the office just to come back to the office. It's such a frustrating, go back to 3 years ago, and they all are struggling with it, all of them. So my belief is we just discovered something really cool, flexible work, and then people discovered something really cool, flexible work. It works for their lives, it works for work, and we discovered we don't have to be in person 5 days a week to get stuff done. And I think what we did discover is some value of coming together, but you can do it strategically. And there's some very, very specific things that we can do as human beings that in person are better. And the way we can connect, and there's a lot of stuff. But there's also lots of things that we can do asynchronously. Like we don't have to be in the room. I can do Zoom calls all day long. And that's what a friend of mine said. I go into the office and I'm on Zoom with everyone else in the office. Yeah. Like how I can Zoom from my bedroom. I don't need to. So if I'm spending 3 days out of work on Zoom at work, I could do this at home, save my commute time, not use so much pollution in my car. I could be doing my laundry while I'm actually working too. So my life is a little bit easier. There's a diversity issue. You have a better access to a larger population if you're not just employing. Let's say if we were a guild and we're only based in Denver, we can only employ people in Denver. That's it. That's our pool. If, like Guild does, allows people to work from everywhere, then the pool is the entire United States of America, or more. Yeah. So if you want a limited pool and you want to kind of fish from the tiny place that everyone else is fishing in, you can limit your talent pool and force them to live nearby. I think for some cultures and a very small number of companies that probably is the right thing to do. Maybe high design, high creative, high tactical companies. But I think the companies that are going to win for the war for talent, which by the way it's going to get more intense, are the ones who allow flexible work, and they're going to all this stuff about pulling people back. They're going to change their minds again. Even the ones that like people stay, people come back, I think flex work is here to stay. The companies that figure it out. Here's the thing. Like what we're doing is like, we're so uncreative, we can't even figure this out. So let's go back to 3 years ago and do what we were doing. I think it's a failure of creativity in terms of an innovation to think about how to figure this out. There are ways to create belonging. So you mentioned like people who feel like they work from home are lonely, depressed, and don't have a sense of belonging in community. That's what they say. I want to work from home, but I'm lonely and depressed. And so what Guild did is said, let's be creative. And so we created community groups and we paid leads for all of our major areas where we have populations. So you have a community lead for Orlando, community lead for New York, community lead for Florida, community lead for Dallas. And they play together, they go to movies together, they work together from time to time, they volunteer together. And what we did our employee engagement survey, what it came back, some of the people in the communities were more engaged than the people who were coming to the home office in Denver. They had a better experience, more engaged, and more productive. You just have to be more creative. And we had a layoff, which, like a lot of companies, did some correction, and we did too during the past year. Our engagement scores went up 5 points, and sense of belonging went up 13 points. 13 points. That's like unheard of. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with our community groups that we said, okay, we're going to fix this belonging issue, and we can go around it by helping people create community in new ways, not just the old ways by seeing people near the water cooler. I'm going to be very unpopular with that. Like no CEO is ever going to hire me again. He's like, oh my God, we don't want to hire him. He's going to cause trouble.
We ran a LinkedIn Live panel back at the end of January, and we were looking at the future of meetings. And I gathered this group of sort of diverse people, and we talked about this whole thing. And one of them, a lady who runs a magazine called Working From Home, she has got so much experience of talking to so many people about the difference it's made to them to be able to have that flexibility.
It's a big deal.
And at the same time, I think the companies have got to be really conscious of, if you have a hybrid Zoom meeting, the difference of people who are in the office who finish the meeting and then just go off and kind of continue because people will naturally do that as they get a coffee or whatever, and the people who are at home just are cut off from that. And so I think one's got to be very conscious about how you integrate people in that. But one of the points you made earlier is, I often say to people nowadays, if you're going to go into the office, don't do your emails. You can do that at home. If you're going to be in the office, talk to people, be in the space, relate to them.
Yeah. Have a really use it as, I think, the new office is really just meeting and gathering places for people to connect. They need to be designed differently. They need to look differently. So there are ways, and maybe we don't need these giant office spaces either. Maybe there's like a bunch of multi places that people can go to. So maybe the idea of the gigantic headquarter where everyone is may look differently in the future. You may have a lot of pods where people work and they can come together and interact. But and there's always VR. It's gonna feel like you're in the room. So you can walk around the cafeteria. You can get a drink of water. It's gonna feel like you're drinking water. You can gossip on there. You feel like you got all the latest. And so VR is coming. So VR is just like it.
But where you started with the answer to that question was how many of your colleagues are really having difficulties with their CEOs who just want everybody back. And I experienced actually quite a lot of this before the pandemic with a large bank they were trying to save money, so they were closing down these enormous buildings And
Yeah.
so they didn't have any space anymore, so they had to send people home. But not all the management, but so many people in management were saying, but if they go home, they're not going to work. You know,
Right.
they're going to go to the dentist. They're going to take the children to school. They're going to, you know, and it's like the level of trust was so low,
So
and the
low.
need to be in control was so high. And I think the pandemic has taught us an awful lot. But still, I do see a lot of organizations who say, let's go back to how it was. And it's
They
like the
do.
world has moved on, and we've got to move on with it.
The genie is out of the bottle. Like this genie is out of the bottle, and I think people, especially people who are coming up who are used to it, I think they're going to insist on flexible work. I think that's the future, and I don't any. And the company, and I think it actually makes good business sense. I think there's really, you're going to have more diverse populations. You're going to have people who are more well over time, not sitting in cars and driving back and forth to work. I mean, just a lot of, if you look at the long game again, it's probably a better thing for human beings. And I was the biggest advocate for bringing people back in Patagonia. I was like, everyone get back. And then, again, my lack of creativity and innovation. And I went to a guild, and it's a highly distributed workforce. And I was like, wow, not everyone has to be back. And we did take a position at Patagonia that, like, there were roles that could fully work from home. Some would need to be a little bit of both, and some need to be there all the time. And they're like childcare. You got to be there all the time. You can't do that virtually.
Yeah. So let's talk about DEI. As I see it, there seems to have been quite a big pushback.
Did you say that out loud? TI.
So, yeah,
Let's
I
talk
suppose
about TI.
So, well, I've seen a big pushback, and actually, not the next panel that we're running, but the one after that. Maybe
Yeah.
I ought to ask you to be involved in that. It's called the DEI backlash.
Yeah.
And so,
God.
what's your reading of what's happening, and how do you see the next year panning out?
Well, I think like all things are pendulums. Things swing, very hard to get to middle, and hopefully we get to a good place. I mean, I think like most people, the foundation of DEI is that diverse groups, and not just in nature, but everything way diversity creates more innovation, more survivalhood, more sustainability. Every single study ever done is that sustainable structures, either work structures or in biostructures, animal structures, all these things, more diversity is better. So to look away from this and go, okay, we're not going to have a DEI program. At the end of the day, we still need to pick people who are the best folks. But what we weren't doing, and I think a lot of companies who are focused on this, is like, we're not even fishing in the right pools. We're not even trying to do this. We're just getting the fish that keep jumping in the water. And so, when you try and you do different things and you change systems, then you can see change and you can move it. I think that the nature of DEI isn't like, I don't think that like you should have a number or a quota. I don't think that is like the solution. I think what you want is, what is the systems and what are the processes you're using, and how are you making sure that everyone has equal access? And then you pick the best talent. And I think that keeps the fear factor from people like, I didn't get picked because I'm X, or I got picked because I'm X. And I think that the failure of imagination to like make sure you're fishing and bringing all these pools. I still believe that to force the pools, you have to have slates, and you go, okay, at least you have to interview this variety of talent, and at the end of the day, pick the talent that you want to pick. But I think you can go, okay, I want to do slates. I also think diversity is more than just selection and demographics. I think that it goes down to just how people are treated. Do they feel safe to take risks? Do they feel like they belong? Do they feel like they're not getting things because of a specific demographic? I think that's, my view is this is, having diverse workforces are great. People feeling like they're included I don't do like, so what's the opposite of that? Exclusion? Like, when you think about the opposite, not diverse, exclusive, inequitable environment sounds terrible. So when you take the pendulum to the other side, to like no diversity, highly inequitable, and, you know, not inclusive, that sounds like a terrible place to work. So I'm personally not going back. I think it's super important. And I think it's a business reason. I don't think that if you're just doing it because you're arm twisted and you believe like, okay, well, we got to do this, then you probably shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. If you're doing it because it's the right thing and you believe it's a business model reason, then none of this bothers you. None of this like, come and get it.
But there is a pushback, isn't there, at the moment? I mean,
There's a huge pushback in the moment, but there's a pushback against. The pushback is, well, first of all, there's a lot of people who got really afraid that, holy spit, my piece of pie, I'm going to have to share it. So there's a lot of people who are upset, holy smoke, I'm going to have to share some of this. But that comes from a belief of scarcity. They believe that the pie is limited, not just like there's enough pie for everyone. And I personally believe in abundance. It's not just a limited piece of pie. I'm not going to protect it. So I think people got really protective on that. I also think there was a moment where there was just not much grace. There was a moment where there wasn't much grace. Like, let people kind of move along on their journey. And I think that I'm finding that people who have in organizations and structures that have a little bit of grace for both, like grace for people to kind of go, okay, I got my pronoun wrong today. Sorry, I'm going to get it better tomorrow. Or I got this wrong, or you kind of stepped in the wrong thing. I think it's helping people to meet them where they are on their journey and to kind of help move, as long as they're moving forward. I think that's great. Attacking and canceling people for being where they are, even when they're on the journey, I think it wasn't helpful to helping everyone else move forward. It just made people scared. That's my probably unpopular point of view. But I don't believe in like canceling human beings. I just think that like, and people who are on the journey, people who like completely reject stuff is totally different. Like, I did and I'm proud of it. It's different than, wow, I'm learning, I'm on my path, I'm moving forward.
You talk about being scared. I do think that fear is a real underminer in this, and actually the pandemic really accentuated that. That I think the level of fear generally in people is much higher, and I think there's all sorts of things that are actually either consciously or unconsciously designed to increase that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, everyone's kind of motivated by two things: fear and love. Like, they just those are two big motivations, and so you just pick. We have choice.
So, all right. So, authenticity is increasingly important. So, how can you tell if a company's purpose is authentic or not? Have you come across businesses where they're talking the talk, but not walking the walk?
Oh yeah, we had some in the news lately. So you got that. That's what I think people respect about. Let's go to Patagonia for a moment, which I think they are number one brand because they're so authentic and authentic to the brand. And what happens at Patagonia, for example, I wrote an op-ed on childcare. And I came back to the CEO, Rose, and said, I wrote this op-ed. She goes, did it hit hard enough? I was like, oh, yeah, let me go back to it. And I rewrote it. And so I came back and, 70% of the people said this was great. And then, 30%, were viscerally responding to what I had said. And I told her, I'm like, wow, we had some really challenging responses to this. She goes, perfect. And I just feel like, in this time, you got to know that when you're a purpose-driven company, you're going to piss off 20 to 30% of the people because of your deep belief in the purpose. And you got to understand that that's kind of what it is. And people do say, I don't necessarily agree with that, but they're authentic and they believe it. I think that's a difference. If you like wave a flag of some sort and you put it on your clothes and you do things and then you get a little trouble for it and you're like, oops, pulling that all off the shelf. That feels inauthentic. It feels like it was, performative, or it feels like it was where you were doing this for other reasons other than because you believe in that particular situation. So I just, if you're going to have a purpose and you're going to stick to your guns and you're making a big deal about it, you better have the authenticity within your brand to be consistent and do it. For example, again, I'm gonna use Patagonia again. If Patagonia didn't see Patagonia speak up on gun control, it wasn't. We're not a gun control company. We're climate. And so there are issues that people go, wow, you tend to be left leaning and this is going to be your thing. And so why aren't you speaking up against gun control? And we're like, we can't speak up on everything. We don't have an authentic voice in gun control. We do have an authentic voice in public lands and climate, and we're going to leverage that voice for change. I think that companies need to know in advance, what do we stand for? What do we not stand for? What are we willing to lose business for because we're a purpose-driven company? And, what are we going to be consistent about? I think that's and I think, consumers, when they feel you're authentic, you get a break. It's when you're wishy-washy and you think you're just doing this for an ad campaign, you don't. I think consumers spoke pretty loud about this the past year or two.
I love speaking to you because it feels like things are so real and for you and the way that you communicate. Just finally, if you were speaking to a CHRO, somebody the head of HR in an organization, and they're struggling in some way at the moment, and you've mentioned a number of ways that they might be. What message would you give them?
So for someone who's struggling, well, the best thing to do is find a network of other CHROs who are struggling. So find misery loves company. But I find I have some really valued networks that I've had for 15, 20 years that I go to for big challenges. I have some trusted people that I go to when I'm in a challenge. I think we're going to continue to be handed what I call paradoxes, which there's no right answer. There's no right answer. And you're handed this responsibility, and I think we've been giving more and more responsibilities. That's why heads of HR are getting paid more and more all the time, because they're like, you take care of the paradox. And so there's an article just came out that maybe they're getting this behind the CFO, the second highest paid job. But it's because we have to deal with these paradoxes, vaccine or not vaccine. I'm not a medical officer, but I have to make that decision. Come to work, stay at home. I got to make that decision. There's paradoxes and there's trade-offs for all this. Palestine or Israel. What? How am I even equipped to work through these really? It's even just all these things keep happening in terms of paradoxes that come, and I think the head of HR continually has to navigate those, and that's the hard part of the job. Is continually, and we're getting more and more of these things where there aren't clear answers, and the employees are coming to us to pick sides. CEOs and boards are coming to us to be the one who picks sides, and I think that what we have to come back to say is, let me tell you this: of this paradox, here are the trade-offs. And I think if we talk to this in terms of trade-offs, if you go right, here are the trade-offs we're going to have to take. If we go left, here are the trade-offs we're going to have to take. And I can tell you I've got a personal opinion, but that's completely irrelevant. But I do need to make you aware of the trade-offs for this. And I think that's the best way to work with this struggle that we're given, is to be real clear about, we can go right, and here are the trade-offs, here's go left, and the trade-offs, and now we have to make a decision.
Dean, thank you. I actually think that could help an awful lot of people. So
I go to sleep at night knowing, I know I don't write all the right decisions, but I do make decisions, and then I understand consequences and trade-offs, and you live with those.
Yeah. Such a pleasure to work with you. Such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.
Really appreciate it.
I enjoyed this. Thanks a lot. All right.